I have known the story of Pinchus my whole life because my mother used to tell the story of her first child as really the story of our family's survival.
Had gekriegt hat in der Fiesteran für ein Kind, in Polen immer gegangen, als eine schwere Schuhe umgetan. Er hat bald ein Bein zerbrochen. Hab ich umgeriert, hab ich gesehen, das Hitz. Das ist nicht mehr getan, das ist nicht mehr Telefon, aber ich genommen auf mich, ich habe ihn gegangen zum Doktor mit ihm.
Basically, he developed gangrene in his leg. She took him to the doctor. They realized it was bad. He said he has to go to the hospital. They organized a car to drive them to Plotsk, and he was admitted to hospital there. And he was in very bad shape, very sick, very feverish. And after a few days, he died. My mother, she says on this video, "You don't know how strong I had to be."
I dressed him and I took him home to Gombin.
She was very worried that they would want to keep the body in the hospital. She picked him up and she walked out of the hospital with the dead body. Can you imagine? So my mother apparently was just totally broken up by this event. And every morning she used to go down to the cemetery and just lie on the grave, you know, weeping.
And the funeral was in Gombin. Later I thought to myself, the old school, in every school, was going to the funeral. The whole city was crying. The whole city was crying with me.
My father had already left to go to Uruguay. You know, the plan was that he would go, get himself established, then earn enough money, bring my mother and the two children over to be with him. And she felt terribly worried that my father would abandon them. My father would blame her for the death of the child and abandon them.
He was a peddler. One of his customers was the madam of a brothel. And he was just going by the day that he heard about Pinchus' death, and he apparently looked devastated. Could he bring them over? How would he do that? And how would he get the papers? She said, "We have friends in high places. We'll get you the papers." And he did.
Very shortly thereafter, the Uruguayan consul contacted her and said, "There's a ship leaving tomorrow. Can you be ready?" She said, "I'm ready." So a ship was leaving for Uruguay, and she was at sea for something like 6 weeks. But she made it to Uruguay with my sister. The story was always told to us as, well, if Pinchus hadn't died, we would have stayed in Poland waiting for my dad to earn enough money to bring them over and, to welcome them to Uruguay the right way. So, the fact that it was accelerated, they were at sea when the war began. All of the headstones from the Jewish graves had been destroyed by the German armies when they came in 1939. They took the headstones of the Jewish cemetery and they used them to shore up the roads because they were driving heavy equipment, tanks and transport carriers and all that, so that they had built some of the bridges and roadworks using these matseva. Matseva is the Jewish word for headstone. But sometime in the 1990s, the Polish government was rebuilding some of these old bridges, and they had discovered that it was built out of these stones. And to their credit, rather than simply use them again or destroy them or just throw them away, they had put them all in a warehouse. And somehow Ada Holtzman got word of this from people that she knew in the community, and she had made a trip to Poland by herself, and she cataloged the headstones. In August of 1999, we went on this trip to Gombin, this place that I had heard about. And as we rode out in the bus to Gombin, everybody was joking and laughing, a lot of stories being told. Ada Holtzman takes the PA system. This is a tourist bus. And she says, she tells us about these headstones. And she says, I'm going to read off the names that I could decipher from some of these headstones. And she starts reading a long list. And at some point she says,
"The tombstone of Pinchus Chaja."
I wasn't even listening, to be honest. And Jane gives me a jab in the ribs. She says, "Bernie, isn't that the name of your brother?" When we got to Gombin, Jane and I took off for the cemetery. We started looking, and there we found the headstone of my brother. It has the date of his death, the way Jews record dates. So it's Zion, the 7th day of Adar, the month of Adar, 1938. And then it says, here lies our dear child, Pinchus, who died at 8 years of age. In Yiddish. Du riet Pinchus, unser Liebkind Pinchus, gestorben 8 Uhr. You know, we touched that stone. It was like touching my brother. You know? What an incredible coincidence that we would be, Jane and I, on that bus at the moment when the only person who actually knew whose headstones those were announces over a PA system, right, the name of my brother. I didn't even hear it. She heard it. You know? We were among maybe 2 people in the whole world who could have identified who that tombstone belonged to. And it was my brother. We were so excited. You know, we did this rubbing for my sisters and so forth. But we called home. We were staying in a hotel in Plotsk, the city near Gombin, and we called my mother. And we told her we found Pinchas's matseva. She didn't even know it existed. On the phone, when we told her about the matseva, you know, I can't remember exactly what she said, but when we got back home and we talked about this with my sisters and my mother, you know, she made it very clear that she didn't want to reopen that chapter of her life. It was too painful. It was a very painful experience to lose that first child like in that way. And she said to me something like, it was a long time ago. I want this story to be known by our children, our grandchildren, and their children. You know, it's a powerful story, and it's our family story. So, you know, it's worth telling. It's worth telling and repeating, you know.